All right, so before I get into it, I need to just explain something real quick for people who maybe have never dealt with heroin withdrawal or fentanyl, whatever. There's a drug called Suboxone that um, it's used to get people off of opiates. It's like methadone. You probably heard of methadone, but Suboxone is a pill that people take that blocks the opiates from getting on the receptors. So if you're on Suboxone, it's going to block the heroin. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to make that clear because I mentioned Suboxone a bunch of times in the story, and if you're not familiar with these types of things, you wouldn't even know what it is. So that's what it is. Suboxone, people use that to get off of heroin because it will it prevents heroin from working basically, and it also prevents you from withdrawing from heroin because it is an opiate. But if you don't abuse it or whatever, then it's not going to get you high. So I just wanted to make sure that people understand what Suboxone is because I mentioned it like 100 times in this story. So that's I add that in. So the first point I want to make is if you're addicted to something, I don't care if it's heroin, fentanyl, Oxycontin, Roxy, Perks, Suboxone, methadone, whatever, alcohol, whatever it is, you need to realize that you can get off it and you can be a lot happier without it. Um, that was one of the things when I was on heroin. I couldn't imagine living without it. I was like, I just it was my only pleasure in life. I had nothing else. Heroin was my entire life revolved around it. Like without heroin, I was miserable. Um, so you need to realize that these things put like a spell on you. You don't realize it while you're on it, but it's like it's basically tricking you into thinking it's way better than it actually is. Because now that I'm off it, I can't even believe that I used to think that way. I can't believe that I thought that I couldn't live without it because now I can't even believe I was ever even on it. I mean, I'm so glad to be done with it. I'm so glad to be out of those ridiculous situations that heroin used to put me in where I got to deal with these annoying fucking people who you're like you're not a priority. I was never buying more than like 4 or 5 bags at once, so it's like chasing that shit around like a dog chasing its tail. I mean, it's ridiculous, dude. And the other thing is, it's like, the longer you stay on it, the more expensive your habit's gonna get. It's like, I mean, that was my experience. The habit just kept getting bigger. Of course, eventually, it gets to a point where you just can't afford it. And I wasn't willing to do certain things to get it. I hated kicking dope, but I also knew there was a price to pay for what I was doing, and I wasn't about to start making other people pay that price. I wasn't about to start begging for money. I worked too hard my whole life to be begging anybody for anything. So um, I wasn't about to start robbing and stealing and hurting people and committing crimes to get dope. I just wasn't willing to do that. I'm not willing to hurt people for my mistakes. You know what I mean? I'm just not willing to. And people make mistakes. I'm not saying you're a bad person if you've done that. You need to realize that you can't be acting like that. It's like that, you just can't be that way, man. You cannot be that way. It's like, don't don't make other people pay for your stupidity. You know what I'm saying? You made stupid decisions. You got to deal with it, bro. So um and if you keep that mentality, the habit's not going to be able to get that big because you're not going to be able to make that much money. You know what I mean? So that was one of the things that saved me, I believe, is the fact that I wasn't willing to cross certain lines. Like, the way I made money back then was I was telling jokes in Central Park for $1 a piece. So my habit was never able to get any bigger than like $40 a day. It just every time it would get to that point, I was you know, going hard all day, and then I'd be eating like $1 cheeseburger, you know, and like all my money was going to heroin. So at that point, I had to kick it, and I went through that more times than I can count. I don't even know how many times I reached 4 bags a day and had to kick it because I couldn't afford to go any further. But then the problem is, once I would kick it, I would think to myself, oh, now my tolerance is down to 1 bag a day. I can go spend $10 and get high. And, you know, so I went through this cycle multiple times and thinking I can just do a bag every couple of days. Next thing I know, I'm back up to 4 bags a day. And I went through it many a time to where I just got completely disgusted with the entire situation. And I wasn't trying to live like that no more. So what ended up happening was a buddy of mine got me a job, and the job was we would try to get, we'd call people up. We're working in the financial district, trying to get people to take a loan, and these are our leads were people who are known to take loans, you know. So we would try to get them to take the loan, and then we'd get a cut of the loan if they took it. Anyway, so I had quit heroin about 2 weeks earlier because I knew I was starting a job. I didn't want to be, I wanted to start fresh. I wanted to live like a normal person. I wanted a job. I wanted my bills paid. I didn't want to be chasing heroin around anymore. So the problem was, my buddy, one of my best friends in New York, who got me the job, he was on Suboxone because earlier he had been addicted to Oxycontin. So we're sitting there one day at work, and I hear him back in his little cubicle, and he goes, I'm gonna snort a half of Suboxone and see if I get high. And that basically just triggered me. I was like, yo, let me snort a half of one, see if I get high. And so we each snorted a half a sub. We got high as fuck. We're on the phone. You know, all of a sudden work is fun when you're high. You know what I mean? So from then on, I started doing about a half a Suboxone, or like I didn't even need a half to get high at that point because my tolerance was low. So I'm doing like about a quarter of a Suboxone every day and getting high as fuck off it. But that only lasted a couple weeks. Next thing I know, I'm just snorting the quarter of a Suboxone just to not go into withdrawal. So at that point, I was like, I might as well get back on heroin. If I'm gonna be snorting poison up my nose, I might as well get high off it, you know? So then I'm like, I'm taking 2-hour lunch breaks, running uptown to get fucking, you know, get heroin to get high so I can even stomach my job. I couldn't even be at work sober at this point because I'm used to being high again. So of course, eventually that I lost the job. So now I've got a little bit of money saved up. I'm back addicted to heroin, and I realized that the only way I can make money again is by telling jokes in Central Park. I'm not going to be able to afford this habit I got now, so I basically just sat there, spent up all my money getting high, and went back to I found another Suboxone connection. So I found another friend who, he was getting Suboxone from a clinic, and so for whatever reason, the clinics, they want to put you on like 30 milligrams of Suboxone a day. And you know, they say that it's because they have a whole system, they're going to wean you down, this and that. But personally, I believe they're trying to get you just addicted to Suboxone for life, because there's no reason to be on that much Suboxone unless you've got a really big habit, you know. So anyways, my buddy who's getting these Suboxones from the clinic, he's not doing all them. He's not trying to be on that much Suboxone, so he's got plenty left over. So I'm buying them off him for $5 a piece, and I'm doing about a half of one every day just to not have to do heroin. You know, I'm back to dollar jokes in the park, which is, I'm broke as fuck basically. So but still, at this point, I'm still going back and forth between heroin and Suboxone, because I'm thinking like, you know, oh, I can get high for a couple days and then I don't even got to kick it. I'll just get back on the Suboxone. So that's what I would do I did that for maybe a year. And then finally, one day, This is like right before the winter. I must have been around 2016, I guess, right before the winter. And, or no, it's probably like, yeah, 2016. And I have a little bit of money saved up from doing my jokes in the park. Or no, at this point I'm doing portraits in the park, so I'm making better money. So I've got a little bit of money saved up, and the winter's gonna be rough. I know it. It's like, it's hard to get people to stop to do a portrait when it's fucking 30 degrees outside, you know? So I'm trying to hang on to my money and just stay on the Suboxones, but the heroin's like calling to me. So what I don't do a sub for a day, and then I go and buy a bundle of heroin, which in the Bronx it's like $60, which is 10 bags of heroin. So I get my little bundle. I think I'm good to get high for the next couple of days, and then I'm like, oh, I'll quit after this, whatever. So I'm sitting there, and I hadn't done Suboxone the day before. I think it had been about a day since I had touched any Suboxone, so I'm thinking, oh, I'm good. I'm gonna get high as fuck. So I do one bag. It has 0 impact. I do another one, no impact. Another one. I end up doing about 7 or 8 bags out of this bundle, and it gives me this strange, weird high. It's because Suboxone blocks heroin, you know, so you cannot do heroin if you're on Suboxone. It'll just block it. You're just flushing your money down the toilet. So, you know, I'm thinking, oh, I didn't do a sub for a day or two, so I can, but it didn't work. The Suboxone was still blocking it. So I end up doing most of the bundle that one day. Didn't really get high, just got this weird halfway high that it just was weird. It sucked. I didn't enjoy it. I was pissed that I had just blown $60. For me at the time, that was a lot, especially with the winter coming up. I'm gonna, you know, I was very upset with myself over that. So I was like, I'm done with this shit. The next day I did the other 2 bags, maybe got a little high. And, you know, I went to the park, did my portraits, got this Suboxone off my friend, and then the next day, I wake up, and I think I'm withdrawing. It's not bad yet, but I hadn't done any heroin since the day before, so I'm assuming I need to do my sub right now, you know, so and at this point, I'm still snorting the Suboxones. It's just a habit. I was, like, that's the way I was doing heroin. I was snorting it. I never did shoot heroin. I did almost one time because my tolerance, like, I'm up to like 4 bags a day again, and I wanted my tolerance to go down. So I was figuring if I shoot a bag, I'm only going to need 1 bag. I'm not going to need 4, you know? But my friend who I was with, he was like, let me tell you something, man. He's like, 15 years ago, I tried to do the same thing. I tried to I'm going to shoot it one time just to save money, and like, you know, and 15 years later, I haven't stopped shooting it. And I was like, you know, that when he said that, it hit me. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to drop my $40 and put it up my nose, dude. I'm not trying to, I don't want to be fucking with this shit for the next 15, 20 years, for the rest of my life, whatever. So he saved me on that. So where was I? So, you know, so I get my Suboxone off my friend. I wake up the next day, and I'm thinking I'm withdrawing, but apparently I wasn't, because once I snorted that fucking half a sub, I went into like instant withdrawal. It's called precipitated withdrawal. That's if you still have heroin in your system and then you do Suboxone, it knocks all the opiates off your receptors, and it puts you into like this intense withdrawal that, like, I mean, I was fucked up. I was in bad shape. I felt like such shit. I wanted to die, but I had to get up and go make money that day. So I go to the park, I do make my little money to eat or whatever. I'm feeling like absolute fucking shit. And at this point, I don't give a fuck about heroin. I don't give a fuck about none of it. I just don't want to feel like this anymore. Fortunately, it only lasted like a day. The next day, I was pretty much back to normal. Not fully, but I felt a lot better the next day. So at this point, I just get on a regular Suboxone schedule. I'm doing about a half a Suboxone. I'd say I was doing about a quarter in the morning and a quarter at night. Um, and it was enough to make me not want to do heroin. It was enough to where I knew if I did heroin, it was going to block it anyway. So, although the truth is, like, I was living on the street at this time, and everyone I knew was on heroin. So I kept running into people who were like, you want to go in on a bundle? You want to, like, let's go get some dope, this and that. And a few times I fell out, I went for it. But the Suboxone, for the most part, was blocking it. So I was just wasting my fucking money and not really getting high. So I kind of just gave up on that whole fucking scene. I was like, I'm on the fucking Suboxone. It's a wrap, dude. I'm not doing fucking heroin no more. Every time I do, it's just a waste of my money. It's not really getting me high. It's just fucking, it's pointless. I'm just wasting my money, and I'm done. So, and I'm not willing to go into any type of really withdrawals anymore. I had been through it so many times that I was just done. I was just fucking done with it. So I pretty much gave up on the heroin at that point, and just stopped even fucking thinking about it. I was making my money doing my portraits. I was sleeping on the street, but as far as someone being homeless goes, I had a lot of fucking money. Like, I would usually have a couple $100, sometimes $1,000 in my pocket. So I was pretty much just enjoying the fact that I could eat whatever I want. I could buy all the weed I want, smoke all the weed I want. I had a good phone. Like, I was living pretty good for someone who's living on the street. I had a good spot that I was sleeping in. Everyone around there knew me. Nobody fucked with my spot. Nobody fucked with none of my shit. So, I was just in the habit of, I'd wake up in the morning, I'd go do my portraits in the park. Then after I made my money, I'd go to another part of the parks, smoke a bowl, chill. Then I'd go charge my phone at Starbucks and eat whatever I was gonna eat, and then I'd go to my spot at night, smoke some more weed, play some PUBG on my phone, and that was, I just went like that. Or I don't even know if PUBG was out at that time. I don't think PUBG was out yet, but I was content. I was fucking, oh, what I was doing? I was playing Skyrim on my laptop. So I'd smoke weed in my spot at night and then play Skyrim on my laptop, like in my sleeping bag. So I was pretty content. And so about a year goes by, and I'm walking down 71st Street in the morning on my way to do my portraits in the park, and it hits me like a bolt of lightning out of the sky. I just realized very suddenly and very abruptly, I'll never forget this moment. I realized all of a sudden that, like, I haven't even thought about heroin in like a year. I was like, it used to run my whole life, but now I haven't even thought about the shit in a year. And there's people doing it all around me. It's like, I just realized that I was kind of over it at that point. So right then and there, I decided, like, well, I'm strong enough to be off everything now. I'm not gonna fuck with no heroin no more. I learned my lesson. So at that point, I decided to start weaning down on the Suboxone. At the time, I was doing about a quarter of a Suboxone in the morning and a quarter at night. So what I started doing was just shrinking those pieces down. Now, my buddy was getting the pills. He wasn't getting the strips. The clinic was giving him the pills. So I would take the pill, cut it into 4s, and then that would be like 2 days supply of Suboxone. But what I started to do was I would cut the 4s down. I'd cut the pieces down to smaller than 4s. And so I couldn't tell you the exact measurements, but they were less than quarters. So I would just do a little less than a quarter in the morning and a little less than a quarter at night. And the next thing I know, I'm down to doing like basically an eighth in the morning and an eighth of a pill at night. So, and I just kept weaning them down. I just kept making it smaller and smaller, and I didn't even really feel or notice a difference. I mean, I did it pretty quickly, somewhere between quickly and gradually. I don't even know how to explain it, but I just kept shrinking it down. And if I felt extra shitty one day, I'd do another little piece of sub or whatever, but I never upped the dose, you know what I mean? So if I got down to a certain size, I wouldn't make it bigger, So till eventually I was down to doing like this little small crumb in the morning and little small crumb at night. And it also, at some point in there, I had stopped snorting them. I realized that, I'm not getting high off them anymore anyway. So, but that was a hard thing to let go of. I was so used to snorting fucking drugs into my nose because of the heroin that, like, it was kind of a hard thing to let go of. But that was a major step, because after that, it stopped being this kind of, I don't know, like, maybe because it was illegal, exciting. I don't know what it was, but once I just started taking it normal under my tongue, it kind of lost all its, like, allure and whatever. So, I'm down to a little tiny crumb in the morning and a little tiny crumb at night, and I'm thinking, like, man, I'm pretty much done with this shit at this point. So I think it was Easter Sunday 2019. I know it was Easter Sunday. And usually in the morning is when I would do, like, I'd drink my coffee at McDonald's in the morning, then I'd go in the bathroom and do my little piece of sub. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I didn't do it that day. I didn't do it that day in the morning, and that was hard. I came so close to doing it because it's like I just couldn't let this shit go. I felt like, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but that was a major hurdle right there. I didn't do it in the morning. I went about my day, I made my little money, and that night I didn't do it again. And the next day I didn't do any. And the next day I didn't do any. But then I think it was that night, and I felt fine up until this point. I didn't feel any withdrawals, and it's like I was like, wow, this is I'm gonna do this, So in the middle of the night, on about the third or fourth day, I wake up at 4 a.m. very abruptly, and I'm like in a slight state of withdrawal. And it's not like heroin withdrawal. It's not as bad, nowhere near, but it was still there, and I couldn't sleep with what was happening. It's like, if you ever kicked opiates, you know that, like, at some point during the process, it's like you can't fucking stop moving. You can't sleep. You can't get comfortable. Your legs want to bounce around. Like, you just cannot. It's hard to explain unless you've experienced it, but it's fucking horrible. It's the worst part of withdrawals to me, where, like, you just cannot stop fucking moving. So that was happening to me, but on a lesser scale than, like, on heroin. It's fucking intense with the Suboxone. Because I had weaned down to such a small amount, it just was nowhere near as intense as when you're kicking fucking heroin. So, what I did was I had a little crumbs of Suboxone in my little stash. I took a little teeny tiny bit, put it under my tongue, and that was, I went back to sleep. It got rid of that where I couldn't stop moving. So, like, that little teeny tiny piece of Suboxone conquered that. It got rid of that part of the withdrawal. So I was able to sleep, and that was the last time I ever touched any Suboxone. After that, I slept every night. I was working out during the day. I was feeling a slight withdrawal, you know what I mean? I'm not going to say I wasn't withdrawing at all, because I was feeling some slight bit, but it wasn't like, it was nothing like kicking fucking heroin. It was like a tenth of that. So I was still able to function every day. I was still able to do my portraits every day, make my money, smoke my weed at night, work out, doing my push-ups during the day, and I just maintained. I did feel a little shitty, I'm not gonna lie, but I just didn't go back to touching any subs and push through it. And within, I'd say, 2 weeks, I was starting to feel pretty strong. I knew at that point I was done. I knew that I wasn't going back. And I'd say after about a month, I was 100% myself. I felt better than I had in fucking years. I didn't have all these fucking chemicals running through my body. I felt fucking great. And it's like, I'm grateful for the experience. I'm grateful to be done with it. I'm here to tell you it can be done. People say kicking Suboxone is as hard as kicking, heroin. It's not true. And the main reason is because I I could never wean down on heroin. I could wean down on Suboxone, and I did. And like, I'm here to tell you it can be done. And it's like, don't let nobody tell you how hard it is. Don't let nobody tell you how bad it is and this and that. Like, it's not. You have to fucking, when you make a move forward, you gotta not go back. You know what I'm saying? So that's basically it. Um, you just gotta be determined, man. Mm. And the thing is, you're not going to be able to live your whole life on these opiates. Like, I mean, I guess you could live your whole life on Suboxone or methadone. I know people who have been on methadone for 30 years, literally. That's why I went the Suboxone route. That's why I didn't do the methadone. I wasn't willing to spend the rest of my life dealing with this type of shit. So that's pretty much my story. So the other thing is, people say when you're an addict for life. I don't agree with that at all. It's like they want people to think that they have no control over themselves, like you have a disease. No, I don't think that's it. It's like, I did heroin for maybe 4 years of my life. That doesn't define my entire existence. I'm not a fucking heroin addict. I was for a couple years, but I'm not now. You know what I mean? So I mean, you can think and say what you want, but I don't let people tell me that type of bullshit. It's like, I don't know. Everyone's different. So if you need, meetings and all that shit, then more power to you. Go for it. But me personally, I don't want to have my entire life revolve around this one small section of my life. I don't want to be going to meetings. Like, I'm done with it. I was on fucking heroin. I got off it, and now I'm fucking done with it. I don't need support. I don't know. Maybe you do. I'm not telling nobody what to do, but my opinion is, don't let nobody tell you you're an addict for life. Like, don't let nobody tell you it's a fucking disease. Like, I don't agree with none of that shit, bro. I made some fucking mistakes. I got on a powerful drug. I got myself off it, and that's fucking that. It doesn't define me. It has nothing to do with my life now. I wouldn't do it if you fucking paid me to do it right now. It's like, I experienced it. I've been through it. I know where it leads. So, I learned my lesson, bro. And that's it, I guess. So, see you on the next one.